On my third trip to the Adirondack High Peaks, I beat my personal best for both mileage covered and elevation ascended in a single day while climbing some of the most beautiful peaks in the park. Here's what happened.
Morning.
Morning.
We're here. Go down here. 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 First intersection, and actually this is where we split, so we'll start that way and then we'll come from that way a little over a mile to the Marcy Dam lean-tos. So we're in the early stages of the hike still, on our way to Marcy Dam, and I'm just doing the math on what today is probably going to look like. GPS predicted length is 16 miles. But the math I calculated while looking at my map was closer to 17 miles. I think all of the hikes I've done so far have been longer than predicted. So I guess in my mind I'm kind of just prepared for 18 miles total. And on top of that, this series of summits and the way that I'm doing them is going to comprise about 62 to 6,300 feet of elevation gain. So it's going to be a long day. And it's not going to be easy either. And so I've been thinking about my average speeds so far. And on the Dix range, I think I managed about 1.2, 1.3 miles per hour overall. Cascade and Porter was a little better. I think I did 1.5. But Giant and Rocky Peak Ridge, I think I was down close to 1 mile per hour. Still, I've been averaging in that 1 to 1.5 miles per hour range for the 3 hikes I've done so far. So when you apply that to an 18-mile hike, it's a 15-hour hike. 15 hours from 5 a.m. is 8 p.m. It's an estimated time back to car. So I think I'm gonna focus a little bit more on speed today, as much as I can, because that's a long day. Whoa. Avalanche Lake. That's what I want. This was flooded not too long ago. You can see the way the grass is bent down. Whoa. How cool. Whoa. Good morning and welcome back to the Adirondacks. We are well on our way through our MacIntyre Range hike, and this area is more beautiful than I could have imagined. There's bird calls echoing off of the canyon walls, which is such a neat effect. And it's so quiet, which is why I'm whispering. It was another early morning for us. We were out of the tent at 2 a.m. I'm staying at Putnam Pond Campground, which is quite a ways away. That's kind of the southeast section of the park, and this hike is in more of the north central area. So it was something like a 90-minute drive to get to the trailhead. That plus getting ready and having our little hatchback coffee meant that we weren't really on trail until a little after 5 a.m. I was going through the trail logistics and I was a little bit worried about timing, but we've made excellent time here to Avalanche Lake. We made it here just after 7 a.m., so it took us about 2 hours to get here, and we already have about 4 to 5 miles behind us, which is an excellent start. From here, it's between a mile and a mile and a half to Marshall Peak, which will be our first tag for the day. I want to get Marshall Peak out of the way first because the other 3 peaks, Iroquois, Algonquin, and Wright, are supposed to be absolutely spectacular. Some of the nicest summits in the park, from what I hear. We also have another beautiful day in terms of weather.
which is kind of essential for a hike like this because we're going to be spending a lot of time above tree line. But we got lucky. This is the weekend after I did Cascade Porter, Giant, and Rocky Peak Ridge. So back-to-back weekends for us here. There are actually 2 routes up Mount Marshall. There's the Herbert Brook Trail and I believe the Cold Brook Trail. And on your standard Adirondack maps, the Cold Brook Trail appears to be the main route, but what a lot of people online are saying is actually that the Herbert Brook Trail is preferable for both going up and back down Marshall. However, there apparently is a plane wreck on the Cold Brook Trail, and it's right off the trail. You don't have to go very far to see it, and I kind of do want to check that out. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up the Herbert Brook Trail, and then I'm going to come back down the Cold Brook Trail. Marshall is one of those peaks that you have to do independently of the other peaks, so we will be going up Marshall, back down, and then we'll be heading back up again to summit Iroquois, and then moving along the ridge line to Algonquin and Wright. Adding Marshall makes this a pretty substantial hike. The map prediction is 16 to 17 miles, but I know that it tends to be longer than that, so I'm mentally preparing for an 18-mile day. There's also over 6,000 feet of elevation gain because of climbing Marshall, heading all the way down, and then climbing all the way back up again to tag Iroquois, Algonquin, and Wright. It means that one of the most substantial climbs for the day is situated about 8 to 10 miles into the hike, which isn't ideal, but it also means that we end the hike with the best views. And coming off of Wright, it's just 2 miles back down to the intersection where we turned left to come out, and then just another flat mile back to the parking lot. So hopefully a relatively easy ending to a difficult day. This is the type of hike where really you could split it into 2 days. Unfortunately, it's raining tomorrow. Yesterday, Friday, was a very nice day, but I took Friday off last week and I didn't want to take 2 Fridays off in a row, so I'm stuffing it into 1 day and hoping for the best. So from here, it's between a mile and a mile and a half to the Herbert Brook Trail, and then we'll start climbing. Goodness. Oh, that's the trap dike. Okay. I was wondering when I'd see it. Oh, jeez. Yeah, well, that looks like a bucket of fun. So that's the route I'm planning to take to get up to Mount Colden, which is right up there. And I believe I'm combining that with Phelps and Tabletop. That's going to be a hell of a hike.
Okay, we've now reached the junction. I'm turning left to get to Herbert Brook and then going right up Marshall that way. This is the Cold Brook Trail, and this is where we'll come back, head back that way, and then turn left, and then go up Iroquois, back down that way toward Avalanche Lake. Beautiful trail. There's Mount Colden. Avalanche Lake is further that way. Another beautiful spot. Alright, we have finally made it to the Herbert Brook Trail, and we're about to begin climbing Mount Marshall. Depending on what you look at, we've either done 7.5 miles according to the watch, or 6 miles according to the InReach. I will say that the InReach seems to align with map calculations a little more closely, but my theory there, because the watch is supposed to be more accurate because it has multi-band, multi-network GPS capabilities, which I have all enabled. So my theory is that maybe map mileage is calculated using the same relatively rudimentary sampling data as the InReach is calculating, which will smooth out the path a little bit, won't calculate the sharp corners that I'm taking, which the watch might be taking into account, and that's going to add up over time. But yeah, I don't really know. But yeah, somewhere between 6 miles and 7.5 miles we've done so far, and the time is just before 9 o'clock. We lost a little bit of time in the Avalanche Lake and Colden Lake areas. Avalanche Lake had kind of a obstacle course type of trail, and then Colden Lake, actually the trails were pretty nice. They're nice and flat and wide, easy to follow, but there were a lot of intersections, so I was having to constantly pull up my map just to make sure I was making the right turns, and I made some wrong turns anyway, so that slowed us down a little bit. But everything that we've done so far is pretty much all just approach, and the hike finally starts now as we start to ascend Mount Marshall. So this is actually Herbert Brook right here. It flows down this way, and not too far down that way it merges with the Opalescent River, and the Opalescent River continues down that way and actually reaches a confluence with the Hudson River. So this is actually one of the sources of the Hudson River that eventually reaches New York City. So what we're going to do is there's a path up that way, and we're going to head up this brook, which is going to lead us very close to the summit of Marshall. think I may have stayed left of the brook when the trail went right. So it's been really funky for a few hundred feet. I think I'm gonna hook back down that way. I'm not seeing anything up there that I want to be part of. It's nice to have the brook as a guide because the trail is following it pretty faithfully, so as long as I'm close to that, I know I'm somewhat on track. Yeah. Guessing at this point. I see something that looks like a path over there. I think I'm gonna go over there because this is kind of miserable. Actually, this looks like the path right here. Okay, we're back, baby. All right, the time is just before 10 a.m. Elevation is 3750, and according to the map, we're about 3/4 of the way along the trail. And I'm sensing the trail leveling off a bit. I can see it sloping back toward horizontal above me, so it shouldn't be too much longer now. Cairn and a trail over there. So this looks like it might be the junction with the Coldstream Trail, which means that Summit's not far that way. And when we come back down, we'll go that way instead of that way. Final push. Ouch. Yeah, wow. I think these little peaks are all I'm gonna get. Oh my God. Ouch. Wow. So, Iroquois and maybe Algonquin behind it. I'm not sure how close those two are. I think maybe that's actually just a false peak that I've been looking at. And then I think this is the Great Range. I want to see if that really tall one is Marcy. I'm not sure. We got some over there. Oh man, this is awesome. Yeah, that could very well be Marcy. And then to the right of it is Skylight. And then what's on the forefront? Oh, that's Colden. Okay. Yeah, so that's... I can't see the trap dike from here. Okay, so Colden Lake is right down there. That's Colden. That's Marcy. Skylight. To the right of Skylight is Redfield, but that's not a 4,000 footer. And then Cliff further to the right. Oh, okay, so the closer peak is Iroquois Peak. The one in the back is Boundary Peak. But that doesn't count as a 4K either. And then what am I looking at over there? West is, okay, that's a Santanoni range. So, farthest to the left is Couchy. Closest to us is Santanoni. And furthest is Panther. Quite a view. Man, so that's Colden. Avalanche Lake was further down. And we did 4 miles just to get to Avalanche Lake. We have come quite some distance. Interestingly, I have pretty good service here for the first time since I entered New York. And I want to check the weather because it's gotten a lot cloudier than when I left. Yeah, nothing. Clear. A little bit of wind, that's it. So we're good. Let's bag this peak. Oh. Nice. All right. Gonna check this out. Well, that's Marshall in the bag. Number 10. We're in double digits, baby. Feels great. So cool out here. Heading back down off Marshall now. Don't want to linger too long. We still have so much further to go. Coming for you next. It is gonna take a while though. So it's 10 minutes to 11 a.m. We're at either 9.5 or 7.5 miles. Either way, I think we're pretty on track to what I expected. Hopefully the next 2-ish, maybe 3 miles are fairly quick as we get back down to Lake Colden and head over the trail that'll bring us up to Iroquois. Okay, here's that cairn, which means, I came from that way, but I'm gonna head back that way. And then we'll be on the Cold Brook Trail and keeping our eyes out for an airplane wreck. Oof. Muddy start. Oh, jeez. Okay.
Hi.
Hello. Did you come up this trail?
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is it?
Not too bad.
Just passed a hiker that came up this way, and they said that the airplane wreck is on the other side, over toward Indian Pass, on the other side of the mountain. So, a little disappointing, but I'm still happy to go this way because it's different, and I'd like to compare the two trails. So far, this is exactly the same. So, a little disappointing, but that's on me. I should have done a little more research. So, I thought the trail was looking a little familiar. So I checked the maps and I'm on the Herbert Brook Trail. Again, going back down the same way I came up. I don't know how that's possible because I went down a different way than I came up. Unless the top of that trail splits and then meets back at that point, I don't really know. That's clearly why that hiker I went by said that the airplane crash was on the other side. So I was half right about it. I was just on the wrong trail. Oh well. Not actually looking forward to descending this trail. It's kind of tricky. So it's going to be a long way back down. It is 12:45 and we just made it to the end of Herbert Brook Trail. All right, sit rep. We're starting at 2,800 feet. Iroquois Peak is just over 4,800 feet, so we have about 2,000 feet to climb, and I think it's gonna happen in about 2 miles. So it'll be steep, but I'm still feeling pretty good, even after coming up and down Marshall. So yeah, last big challenge of the day, coming right up. just made a terrible discovery. After 6 years and hundreds of faithful miles, the tip broke off my trekking pole. Here's what it's supposed to look like. It's missing that metal end. Just fell right off. Recently too, I just noticed it. Mount Colden. Been staring at it all day. My pole slips on the rocks now. One word, rocky. Just hit 3,800 feet. It's 1,000 feet out of 2,000 climbed. We're halfway up. It's very hot. The afternoon sun is beating down right now, and the air is getting cooler as I climb, but it remains pretty stagnant, so very sweaty. It's just rocks. That's it. Blue sky lowering before me. There it is. Junction. That's going to be Boundary Peak, but Iroquois is just on the other side of it. And then Algonquin is just up that way. That's a hell of a climb. Time is 2:30 p.m. Which means we did it in, I think, just under 2 hours. Which, at this stage in the hike, I'm pretty proud of. We're at just over 4,700 feet. We're gonna drop a little bit and then reach the top of Boundary Peak, which is, I believe, 48.29, and then over to Iroquois, which is 48.40. Check the map. Iroquois is a 1 mile round trip, so I'm slack packing it just to get it out of the way as fast as possible. And with as little effort. Wow. How's it going? Good. That's Marshall. Came from down there, up and down, and then up this way. Wow. What a hell of a hike. Alright, that's Iroquois. Number 11. Time of day is 3 p.m. I have 15 real miles and 11 and a half map miles. I'm starting to feel it now. Okay, we're back at the junction. Reunited with my backpack. Had a little snack. Now it's time to climb New York's second tallest peak. Having all the weight back on my back sucks, but there's actually not a whole lot left to this. Believe it or not. That's Algonquin in the bag. Number 12. 5,114 feet. Second tallest peak in New York. Can't tell you how happy I am right now. So tired, but so happy. Made it to the summit of Algonquin at about 3:30. Views were absolutely outstanding. Some of the best in the Adirondacks, I imagine. We're headed to the last mountain of the day, Wright, which has its own little spur path that we're going to have to out and back. And I'm strongly considering slack packing that as well. This is just as steep going down the other side. Just as rocky too. Oh. Yeah, spur path for right. Okay, I'll leave the bag here. 8/10 round trip. Okay, heading up to Wright. Time is 4:45. Map mileage is just a shade over 13. Actual mileage just hit 17. Oh boy. Pretty sure that lake is where I'm parked. Made it to Wright Peak. Number 13 for me. And the final peak of the day. Now it's just a long descent back home. Down to that lake. It is now 5 p.m. and I'm up over 17 miles. Actual miles. Map miles is 13.3. From here, it's 4/10 back to the junction. Grab my backpack. 2 miles downhill to the junction with the trail that we took out. And then 1 more easy mile back to the car. I think I can do that. So we've made it back to the junction. Time is 6:45 p.m. I actually just passed 20 miles on the watch and we're at 15.7 on the in-reach. So big day, no matter who you ask. It's 1 mile back to the car. I remember it being pretty easy, so we should get there just a little after 7. So today was pretty special. First and foremost, today is the first time that I've ever hiked more than 20 miles in a single day. The final tally was 21 miles and 6,700 feet of elevation gain, which I managed to complete in 14 hours. If you recall, I was worried about
average pace throughout the hike. Well, the final figure was about 1.5 miles per hour, which I somehow managed to sustain across 21 miles. And the only other hike that I've done here that I've managed to sustain a pace like that was Cascade and Porter. Because the hike was so long, it's really challenging to think of it all as one thing. I can only really process it as sections. So the first thing I think of is the approach to Mount Marshall, which went by fairly quickly because we made excellent time. I don't think I'll ever forget standing on the shore of Avalanche Lake early in the morning and hearing the bird calls echoing across the canyon walls. That was just really special. That whole area from Marcy Dam to Avalanche Lake to Colden Lake, or Lake Colden, is stunningly beautiful. Mount Marshall came next, and I think we were headed up Mount Marshall just a couple of hours into the hike. And that trail was a little tricky. I did get off trail once because it weaves back and forth across the Herbert Brook, and you have to really pay attention when it goes onto the brook and then comes back off again. Sometimes it's easy to miss when it comes back off. Otherwise, it was a fairly decent trail. Definitely more of a herd path than a maintained trail, but we expected that. Mount Marshall itself surprised me because I wasn't expecting any sort of views up there based on the way people ranked it, but it actually did have some really tremendous viewpoints, and it started the hike off on a really positive note. Of course, staring across the col from Mount Marshall to Iroquois Mountain really made me realize just how far I had to go. I guess the only disappointment on the hike was missing the plane crash and accidentally getting mixed up near the summit of Mount Marshall and just descending back down the way that I had come up. That was not my intention at all. Now, getting up from that intersection to the junction where I turned left to Mount Iroquois was every bit the challenge that I thought it was going to be. It was something in the realm of 2,000 feet in, I think, maybe a little under 2 miles, which is that's a lot of altitude to gain very quickly. And by that point, I think I had 10, 12 miles already behind me. And I remember telling myself that once I was up there, there wouldn't be too much gain and loss between those peaks. But what I learned later on is that that's not really the case. Getting from the junction to Iroquois wasn't too bad. It was pretty quick. I think I did that round trip in something like a half hour, but it was quite a climb to get on top of Algonquin, and then there was really substantial loss and then kind of a steep spur path to get back up to Wright. And I was feeling kind of apathetic by the time I got to Wright Peak because I had already summited 2 other peaks that were very similar to it, and they're all pretty close to one another, so the views aren't changing very much between them. One highlight for me was going to the edge of the Iroquois summit and looking down at Mount Marshall and seeing just how far I had come already. That call between those 2 mountains represented a lot of effort, so that was pretty neat. The high point of the hike, both figuratively and literally, was the summit of Algonquin, second highest peak in New York, and the view up there is just tremendous. You can see nearly every other range in the Adirondacks from there, and I don't know all the names in the ranges yet, but it's kind of neat to look around and sort of recognize that there's a lot more exploring to be done. So overall, an absolutely phenomenal hike. I think that it will be difficult to find other peaks that are quite as special as these ones were in the Adirondacks. Maybe not the greatest choice for my 3rd hike out here, but the stars aligned, the weather was perfect, the hike was the difficulty that I was looking for, and I was able to get all the bookings even though I booked this weekend fairly last minute. So it's past 11 o'clock now. I did put my paddleboard on the roof of my car in the hopes that the early morning will be nice enough that I can get out onto the pond. That remains to be seen, but I brought it all the way out here, and it's the 2nd time that I haven't had time to use it, so I would really like to get out onto that pond tomorrow morning. So I'm gonna start packing and burn the rest of my wood, and I'll see you tomorrow. It's a turtle. Snapping turtle. It's a big one. It's so quiet out here. Pretty comprehensive cloud cover like we predicted, but still just such a beautiful morning. We paddled into the northern part of the pond through the strait, and there's some campsites out here, and that just must be so nice to stay in this spot. That was super cool. Wild raccoons look like two parents and a baby. Very cool to see. Back in the main pond now, and the weather is changing unfavorably like we expected it to, so it's time to head back. I'm gonna be heading back home once I get the paddleboard packed away into the car, so this will be it for this little adventure. We managed to pack a ton into just a weekend, so this was a really good one, and I can't wait to come back out here.